Hello, and welcome to OneAZ Wealth Management webinar on women in investing. At OneAZ Wealth Management, our full-time professional financial advisors assist clients and members of OneAZ Credit Union all over the great state of Arizona. We are very excited to bring this and many more educational topics directly to you. We are planning more later this year on topics such as Social Security, business succession planning, and more. So stay tuned and check out our website at OneAZWealth.com for upcoming webinars. My name is Tammy Paquette. I have been a financial advisor for 18 years. 11 and a half of those years I have been with OneAZ. It is my pleasure to welcome each and every one of you to this webinar. Here's our information page. It contains all the legal disclosures for your convenience. For better audio, the webinar will be on listen-only mode. We will be fielding your questions at the end of the webinar. Please email any questions to oneazwealth@oneazcu.com. We will be compiling your questions and will answer them at the end of today's presentation. If we do not get to your question, I promise we will respond to you directly. For more information about OneAZ Wealth Management and our team of wealth advisors, visit oneazwealth.com or use your mobile device to scan the QR code on the screen now. You can also connect with us on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube for more exciting resources and helpful information. So let's get started. We're happy to welcome our guest speaker, Liz Flint. Liz Flint is an Assistant Vice President at MFS Investment Management and Senior Business Development Strategist. She joined MFS in 2001, and in her role, she is responsible for sharing thought leadership and practice management content and serving as a subject matter expert on financial issues impacting advisors and their clients. Liz, thank you for joining us today. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tammy, and thank you everybody for joining us this evening. As Tammy said, my name is Liz with MFS, and MFS is an investment management firm that is based out of Boston. And we invented the very first mutual fund back in 1924. But tonight we're not here to talk about the stock market. We're really here to talk about what are some of the issues that women face in their lives and what are some of the things that you can be doing to plan for that. So one thing that I thought I would tell you about myself is I love Christmas cards. I'm not on any kind of social media. I'm not on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat. So the cards that I send out every year are the one chance where I get to let my family and friends know how my family's doing. But what I love even more is going out to that mailbox every day in the month of December and getting the cards that my friends send out and seeing how their families are growing and changing. So tonight, what I thought I would do is actually share with you some of the cards that I've sent out over the last few years and introduce you to my family. So meet my family. Kieran is kissing our youngest son, Ryan, and Colin is clutching Big Bird because we had just gone to see Sesame Street Live the day before where Big Bird came home with us and Big Bird went with us everywhere, including making an appearance on that year's card. This one looks like we're having a lot of fun. We're laughing and we're smiling. But if anybody has ever tried to take pictures with children, you know that's not necessarily the case. Kieran is trying desperately not to drop our son Ryan, and you can tell because Ryan has that petrified look on his face. I love this one. I like that cool green truck that we're sitting on. But I also like how the kids are in coordinating outfits. Not super matchy-matchy, but coordinating. This picture was taken in our backyard in Phoenix. And this year you are introduced to our family dog, Bella. Now, Bella has been part of our family since she was 12 weeks old, and she will actually be turning 17 in February. So she's been part of our family for a really long time. This one was taken at a Christmas tree lot, also in Phoenix, and you'll notice that Ryan's wearing rain boots. Ryan loved those rain boots. He wore them every day that year, which doesn't make a ton of sense because we live in Phoenix and it never rains in Phoenix and it's always 187 degrees. but he loved them, so we wore them. This one was taken in the desert. You can see the desert landscape in the background. But when I look at this particular one, what I noticed is my littles, as I call them. They're growing up. They're getting bigger. Colin's missing those 2 front teeth. And then this was the one that I sent the year after. And you'll notice that Kieran's not in this one. Because after 13 years of being married, Kieran and I went through a divorce. So this one right here was really hard to send out because for so long I'd created this image, this picture that life was really great. I mean, look at our Christmas cards. When people told me we looked like we stepped out of a J. Crew catalog, I liked that. And I get it. That makes me sound ridiculous. So here I am. I'm 44. I am divorced. I am raising 2 young men and I work full time. My challenges today, they are totally different than they were a few years ago. And my concerns for the future look a lot different as well. And I will admit that I have had to ask for help more times than I can count. But maybe, just maybe, Kieran and I would still be married if I would have followed some of the good housewife rules of the 1950s. So what you see in front of you is an actual image that was taken from a 1950s high school home economics textbook. Now, if you were to Google 1950s good housewife, what you'll actually pull up is you'll pull up a list. Now, this list and this text actually went along with this picture in this textbook. And it was titled, How to Be a Good Wife. So let me read you some of my favorites. Prepare yourself. Take 15 minutes to rest so that you will be refreshed when he arrives. He has just been with a lot of work-weary people. Be a little gay and a little more interesting. His boring day may need a lift. Greet him with a smile. Make him comfortable. Have a cool or warm drink ready for him. Have him lean back in a comfortable chair or suggest that he lie down in the bedroom. Arrange his pillow and offer to take off his shoes. Speak in a low, soothing voice. Allow him to relax and unwind. Because the goal is to make your home a place of peace and order where your husband can relax in body and spirit. So that was the 1950s. Thank goodness that the 1970s hit, because the 1970s was a game changer for so many women, as that was the decade that the women's movement officially began. As more and more women, they started challenging these roles and these responsibilities, and they started entering the workforce. And now today, things have changed. If we were to take a look at those good housewife days of the 1950s, 30% of the US labor force was comprised of women. That number is now over 57%, with 29% of women as their family's primary breadwinner. But another thing that's also changed is how we fund our retirements. So when I was growing up, it was very common for somebody to work at the same company for their entire careers, 40 or 45 years, and you retire, and what happens? You get a great party with a beautifully wrapped gift that has a pretty gold ribbon on it, and you walk away with a really handsome pension. Well, now pensions are a thing of the past. Funding that retirement falls on your shoulders. But also the work landscape, it looks different. People aren't necessarily working at the same company for 40 or 45 years. Maybe they have 4 or 5 different job changes or career changes or company changes throughout their career. Maybe they're working as entrepreneurs, or they're working from home, or with the rise of the internet, so many people are conducting their business online. So funding that retirement, that falls on your shoulders. But fortunately for you, that's not something that you have to do all by yourself. And that's exactly why we are here tonight, is to talk about, okay, what are some of these things that we can be thinking about? What are some of these things that we can be planning for? What are some of these things that we can talk to Tammy and other wealth advisors at OneAZ Wealth Management about? And that's what we're going to do tonight. We are going to talk about a lot of different things tonight. We're going to go back to college for just a few minutes, and we're going to start there. And we're going to talk a little bit about credit cards and budgeting and getting that first job and benefits. We'll talk a little bit about getting married and merging finances, or maybe you don't get married with the rise of the single American woman. And then we'll finish up with a little bit of caregiving and Social Security and healthcare. So I will say this, not every single thing will apply to you directly, and I know that. But my hope is that there'll be one or two things that impact you directly, that you can start thinking about and saying, yes, I need to think about that. I need to talk about that. I need to plan for that. Or better yet, maybe there's somebody in your life that can also benefit from this information. Maybe it's a friend or a sister, a daughter, a granddaughter. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go back to college for just a few minutes and start there. So if you can remember your time on your college campus, think about what is on every single college campus out there. Now, a lot of times I'll ask that question, I'll get answers such as a library or a memorial union. But for today's conversation, what we're talking about is we're talking about credit card companies, because credit card companies are pretty smart. They know that most people hold on to that first credit card the longest. And how do they get you to sign up for that credit card? Well, they entice you. So for me, it was a free t-shirt. So it's January of 2000. I had just turned 21 and I went to Las Vegas for the first time. And let me tell you something, I fell in love with Las Vegas. Every single thing about it, right? The glitz, the glamour, the lights, the shows, you name it, I loved it. Well, I was a student at Arizona State, so it was really easy to catch a flight and go to Las Vegas for a long weekend. And that's exactly what I did. But I quickly realized that it was really hard to afford that. So what did I do? I signed up for that credit card. I got my free t-shirt and off to Vegas I went. But I also found out that you can take cash advances out on that card. And that's exactly what I did. Never once did I think how I was going to pay this back. Never once did I think how that was going to impact my credit score. And never once did I think how that credit score was going to follow me for so many years to come. So that was my first relationship with credit. So when you think about credit, there's a number of things that can impact your credit score, but there's one thing on this list that won't impact it, and that is your current salary. Because you can be making over $1 million a year, and if you have poor credit, you are virtually throwing money away to higher interest rates every month. So when you think about what are some of the things that you can be doing to maintain that healthy credit score, you can be paying those bills on time, keeping those balances low. Don't open up credit for a free t-shirt. But also make sure that you're checking that score once a year, because we all know that mistakes can happen. And we want to make sure that if there is a mistake that appears on your credit score, that you get that taken care of, because that score is going to follow you for so many years to come. But it's really hard to maintain a healthy credit score if you don't know where your money is going. And that's why we think it's really important to make a budget. Now, there's some staggering statistics when it comes to budgeting. Only 1/3 of all Americans operate off of a budget. And over 63% of Americans don't have enough money saved for a $500 emergency. And there were some surveys that were done that actually asked people, what are some things that you would rather do than talk about money? People actually said that they would rather spend time behind bars than talk about finances. So I don't know when we became this society where you would rather spend time in a cold, dark, damp, concrete cellar, but that's what a lot of people think. And honestly, it's not surprising. If we take a look at some of those good housewife rules of the 1950s, nowhere in there does it say anything about helping with finances or being responsible with finances. So I get it. A lot of us have kind of grown up not really thinking about that. But it is going to be really important to make a budget, follow a budget. And I know there's a number of different budgets that you can follow. This is just one example. This is the 50-30-20 rule, where 50% goes to necessities, 30% goes to wants, and 20% goes to financial goals. So I'm often asked the question, what is the biggest financial mistake that you see people make? And I always tell people, don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today. Meaning, make sure that you are paying yourself first. So what this illustration is this is an illustration on the power of compounding. Now, I like to think this is very similar to that of a snowball, because when you start out with a snowball, it starts out pretty small. But when you roll it over and over and over, that snowball just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like that with investing. You might start out with a smaller investment, but you're putting money away every month. Maybe it's 10, 20, 25, $50 a month. All of a sudden, that investment, it continues to grow over time. That is the power of compounding, and that is the power of paying yourself first. So I know we just talked about budgets with that 50% to necessities on top, but might I suggest we just flip the script? So instead of putting the necessities on top, we're paying ourselves first to make sure that, yes, we are getting into those healthy savings habits that are going to be so important. So right now there is a war for talent out there as companies are beefing up their benefits programs to attract, but also retain top tier talent. So it's going to be really important to not only understand your benefits, but also understand your spouse's benefits, because they can definitely contribute to the bottom line. So just last year alone, the firm that I work at, MFS, gave every employee 5 additional relief days. So 5 extra days to make sure that we were taking off to take care of ourselves and our loved ones. So maybe these benefits come in the form of extra time off, or contributing to your retirement plan, or paying you to go back to school to advance your education, maternity, paternity leave, gym memberships, pet insurance. All of these things can contribute to the bottom line. So a few months ago, I had to take our dog Bella into the vet. As I said, Bella turned 17 in February. She wasn't eating very well. She was kind of whimpering when I picked her up. So I took Bells into the vet, and the vet did x-rays. Now those x-rays came back, and I was told that Bella has gas. So for over $300, I was told that my dog has gas and I need to put her on a bland diet of chicken and rice. I'll tell you what, I have no idea what that bill would have looked like if I didn't have pet insurance. So that's why it's going to be really important to understand your benefits, understand your spouse's benefits, but also make sure that you're checking them on a regular basis, because what companies are doing, what employers are doing, is they're actually switching those benefits up. They're reaching out to employees to see, okay, what would you like to see included? We want to make sure that we are retaining that top talent. So what would you like to see? So just make sure that you're checking those benefits on a regular basis. So let's move on to merging finances after marriage. So 1,000 couples were surveyed, and they were asked 2 questions. How well do you and your spouse communicate about finances? And how satisfied are you with that communication? So 73% of those individuals that were surveyed, they checked that box that said, you know what, I am extremely satisfied with how we communicate. So they were asked a follow-up question. How much money in salary does your spouse make? Now remember, these are the individuals that checked that box that said they were extremely satisfied with how they communicate. But once they got asked that follow-up question, 50% of the time they were incorrect about how much money their spouse made. And sometimes people were off by over $50,000. And again, those were those individuals that said they were extremely satisfied. So when you think about merging finances, the one thing that is important to remember is it's going to be really important to communicate. I like to think there's 2 types of people in this world. There are savers and there are spenders. Let's just say that 2 savers get married. You still want to make sure you communicate. You want to make sure that you are talking about those financial goals, those spending habits. Are you both working towards the same long-term goals? Well, now let's say that 2 spenders get married. Well, that conversation might be a little bit more awkward. Maybe there's a few more guardrails, but really what you're trying to find out is this. How much money can I spend without telling you? And how much money can you spend without telling me? But whether you have two savers, two spenders, you have a saver and a spender, it all comes down to healthy communication. It all comes down to making sure that you are talking about those financial goals. You are talking about those saving habits. You are both working towards the same long-term goals. Don't worry, I am not using profanity in this picture. What this is a picture of is this is a picture of the ring finger. And what this signifies is the rise of the single American woman. Because for the first time ever, single American women are outnumbering married women. And there's a number of different reasons for that. The first reason is baby boomers. If we were to take a look at the baby boomer generation, the divorce rate in the baby boomer generation has skyrocketed. It has gone up over 700% since 1960. And 69% of the time, that divorce was initiated by the woman. But also, baby boomers are becoming empty nesters, which is a really great thing. My kids, they are growing up, they are moving out, they are figuring out life. I am so proud of them. Except what we're finding is that so many people are remaining unhappily married for the sake of their children. So his mom is outside waving goodbye to Timmy with a tear rolling down her eye. Mom's not crying because Timmy's leaving. Mom's crying because now she has to go back inside and ask herself, okay, now what? The second reason, the average age of a woman getting married has just gone up. So if we were to take a look at those Good Housewife days of the 1950s, the average age of a woman getting married was less than 21. That number today is over 28. And then the third reason is something I like to call the Cinderella syndrome. I have no idea what you'll find if you'll Google that, but this is what I mean, is that we all grew up reading and watching fairy tales. We know how that story ends. Typically with those three magical words of happily ever after, where that Prince Charming comes swooping in to rescue the princess to take her off to some beautiful castle far away where everything is taken care of. And yes, for some women, life is a fairy tale. But for others, if they're not able to find their Prince Charming, their plus one, their soulmate, they're saying to themselves, you know what? I'm good. In fact, 90% of all women are going to be solely responsible for their finances at some point in their life. And that is why it's going to be so important to not only understand your finances, but also understand your financial future. So let's take a look at that retirement plan. So I know at the beginning we talked a little bit about how pensions aren't quite as popular as they were before. Well, what's replacing them? The 401k. So the 401k is the most popular vehicle to fund a retirement. Now, here's how a 401k is supposed to work. You start working when you are 22 and you are increasing your retirement contributions every year, but you're also getting your full employer match. Before you know it, you have a really nice nest egg saved up. Well, that's in the perfect world. And as we know, life isn't perfect, and sometimes life has the tendency to throw us some curveballs. What are some of those curveballs I'm referring to? The first one, 17% of women have left or are expected to leave the workforce to be a caregiver, whether that's caring for children, whether that's caring for a spouse, whether that's caring for an aging loved one. So you need to think, okay, if I'm leaving the workforce to be a caregiver, how might that impact my savings? How might that impact my retirement account? All of these are great things to talk to your wealth advisor about and how that might impact you. The second curveball, freeze your eggs, free your career. So this right here was a rather controversial magazine cover that appeared on Bloomberg Business Week. Bloomberg Business Week has a male viewership of over 71%. So this message was completely lost on its male audience because males haven't had to factor in fertility into their careers. Now, some people might disagree with me on that, but let me give you an example, or a few examples, I should say. We have Mick Jagger. So Mick Jagger was 73 years old when he had his 8th child. We have Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro was 79 years old when he had his 7th child. We have Al Pacino. Al Pacino was 83 years old when he had his 4th child. Women just can't do that yet. And what we've also noticed is more and more women are looking to fertility treatments, and fertility treatments are really expensive. Whether you are freezing your eggs, that can start at $15,000. Fertility treatments can be anywhere between $12,000 to $15,000, and sometimes that can take 3 or 4 or 5 different cycles. You have adoption, which starts at $50,000, surrogacy, which starts at $100,000. Now, the good news is this: the more I read, the more I'm noticing that companies are starting to factor in these fertility treatments as part of their benefits programs. So I know we just talked about benefits and the importance of making sure that we're checking those on a regular basis. And then curveball number 3 is being a caregiver. Again, whether that's caring for a spouse, whether that's caring for an aging loved one, whether that's caring for a child. The Social Security Administration estimates that women take an average of 12 years out of the workforce to be a caregiver. So let's take a look at that nice little nest egg that we accumulated and what happens when life throws us curveballs. Maybe we're not getting our full employer match, or maybe we're not able to increase those contributions every year, or maybe we have to take a loan against it. You can see how quickly that can dwindle down. So on average, women take up to 3 times out of the workforce to be a caregiver. Again, caring for a child, a spouse, or an aging loved one. So what this slide illustrates is one of those times that a woman sidesteps her career for 7 years to be a caregiver. And what you'll notice is it is a difference in her account value of almost $400,000. Now, I know that caregiving is an amazing opportunity that all of us have. And by no means am I suggesting that you work or you don't work, as everybody's situation is unique. However, if you do stop working, make sure that your money does not stop working for you, because there's a number of different options that you might be able to take advantage of to make sure that that money continues to work in your favor. So what we've done is we've had our children, we've sent our children off, and what we're finding is they are actually returning home to be fully supported by their parents. In fact, 32% of the time, young adults between the ages of 18 and 34 are returning home to be supported by mom and dad. And I get it. A lot of times it starts because they're still on that family cell phone plan that they've been on since they were teenagers. But what's interesting is I was actually just at my parents' house last week, and my dad looked at me and he said, "Liz, I think I'm still paying your Costco membership." And I looked at him and I smiled and I said, "You are. Thank you." So I realized that there's some times that they might be automatic, payments or something like that you're paying for. But now that these children are adults, they can start contributing to some of those household costs. I don't know if you heard about the case that occurred in upstate New York a few years ago, but there was a young man that was living at home. And his parents said, "You know what? We really think that it's time that you leave." Well, he didn't like that. So he sued his mom and dad. He took his mom and dad to court. Well, the judge and the jury and the court, they listened to the case. They favored for mom and dad. And they said, "You know what? We really do think it's time that you leave." And by no means am I suggesting that court is an exit strategy, because it's not. What I'm saying is that sometimes we have to say no to our children so we can be in a better position to say yes to other things. And what are some of these other things that I'm referring to? Well, many times it's going to be caregiving costs. And I feel like Rosalind Carter, she said it first and she said it best when she said, there's 4 types of people in this world. There's those who have been caregivers, those who are caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need care themselves. Meaning, we are all going to be impacted by caregiving in some way. And caregiving is really expensive, and it continues to go up in price. So if you were to take a look at a semi-private room at a nursing home, the average price of a semi-private room is over $7,700 a month. The average price of a private room at a nursing home is over $8,800 a month. And virtually all caregivers are also helping with the finances. So when you think about that and you think about, okay, who in my life might I need to be a caregiver for? It's just something that you want to think about. So let me share with you some really great resources if you are in the caregiving capacity or if you will be in the caregiving capacity in the future. When I think of caregiving, I think one of the best things that you can do for the ones that you love or the ones that you're caring for is actually have a healthcare directive on them. Whether that's caring for an aging parent or a spouse, but also think about everybody in your life, whether it's a child or a grandchild that's over the age of 18. Because in our country, if somebody over the age of 18 is taken to a hospital, an emergency room, a healthcare facility, according to HIPAA laws, that hospital is not able to release information to anybody until there is a healthcare directive in place. So having a healthcare directive in place on those you love is really going to be a great way to prepare for an emergency. So let me share with you a website, and that website is caringinfo.org, caringinfo.org. Now this website's really great because what it does is it actually just walks through what a healthcare directive is supposed to accomplish. It gives you some state-by-state examples, but there's also some really great Q&A that can help answer some of those questions. And that, again, website is caringinfo.org. The other thing that I think is really important is to actually have an app on your phone that will allow you to hold that healthcare directive. So in the event that you were to get that call about somebody that you love, that they're taken to a hospital or an emergency room, you don't necessarily have to go to their house to get it, or you don't necessarily have to go to your home to get it, because we all know we carry our phones with us all the time. So by keeping that healthcare directive right on your phone, you are able to make an informed medical decision on their behalf in a relatively quick amount of time. So now let's talk about a little bit about Social Security and healthcare. So if there's one thing that I want you to take away from tonight, it's this. If you or somebody that you know is going to be taking Social Security, I would recommend getting a second opinion. And here's why. Because 82% of women would have been entitled to a higher monthly benefit if they would have only known their options. And here's what's happening. They're either going into that Social Security Administration office or they're calling into that Social Security Administration line. And the person on the other end of the line just isn't educated enough about your own personal situation to make sure that you are declaring the best strategy. And there are thousands of Social Security strategies that can be taken. And once you declare a strategy, it's really hard to change it. So when I think of Social Security, I always think of Jane Fonda, because Jane Fonda has been married 3 times. Now, her first husband was a gentleman by the name of Roger. Now, she and Roger were married for less than 10 years. So in this equation, he doesn't count, because in order to be eligible off of an excess benefit, you have to be married for at least 10 years. Her second husband was a gentleman by the name of Tom Hayden. Now, she and Tom were married for 17 years before that marriage dissolved, and she married Ted Turner. And then she and Ted were married for 10 years before they got divorced. So in Jane's situation, she has 3 options. She could either take her own benefit, or she could take the spousal benefit off Ted or Tom, whichever is higher. So the moral of the story when it comes to Social Security is this. Always keep track of your exes, because they might just come in handy when it comes to figuring out the best Social Security strategy to take. But in all seriousness, it is going to be really important in getting Social Security right, because so many women rely on Social Security for at least half of their retirement income. And we know that women cost more. I know that when I was married to Kieran, I know I cost more. The clothes I was wearing, my trips to the salon, but even my trips to the dry cleaner cost more. You take 2 white button-down shirts to the dry cleaners, one is a man's and one is a woman's. Whose costs more? That woman's shirt costs more every single time. I don't know why. I've never really thought to ask. It's just one of those things that I've learned to accept. But one of the things that we really need to think about and plan for is the fact that women cost more from a healthcare standpoint. But not because we are consuming any more than a man in a year, but because on average we live longer, typically by about 5 to 7 years. But if you were to take a look at people in their 80s, for every 1 man, there are 2 women. And for people in their 90s, for every 1 man, there are 3 women. So the number that I want you to focus on this page is that $36,000 at the bottom of the page, because that is the amount of money that a female is going to potentially spend more than a male on healthcare expenses. So take away the trips to the dry cleaner, take away the trips to the salon. Women cost more from a healthcare standpoint, and it's just something we need to be planning for. I love this comic. I really do, because I don't think it has to stink. I only think that this right here, this $36,000, that only stinks if we don't plan for it. And that's exactly why we are here tonight, is really to start thinking about, okay, what are some of these things that I need to be thinking about? What are some of these things that I need to be planning for? What are some of these things that I need to talk to a trusted wealth advisor about? So when you think about planning, one of the very best things that you can be doing is talking to your family and your loved one about your wealth and your wishes. So there is a great resource out there. This resource is called the Family Love Letter. And that's exactly where you will go to find it, familyloveletter.com. And it is a 35-page workbook. It costs about $30. But what this workbook allows you to do is it actually allows you to start writing everything down. So yes, you can write down the contact information for your wealth advisor, for your attorney, for your accountant. But it also asks you more thought-provoking questions, such as, is there a lien against me that a sibling might come after me for? But the part that I really like in this book is called the Document Locator, which lists the 30 most important documents that all of us have. And then next to each one, there's a line item, which allows you to tell your loved ones, okay, what is this document? When was this document created? How do you get access to this document? Because for anybody on this call who has ever had to settle an estate, you know that it is a marathon of activity, of documents to collect, of paperwork to find, of information to gather. And unfortunately, you are being asked to do it during a time of crisis. So what the Family Love Letter allows you to do is it allows you to start collecting all of that information ahead of time. But more importantly, it allows you to start having that conversation with your loved ones. So it is a great win for you, and it is a great win for your loved ones. So this next card was the card that my littles and I sent out this last year. So I will tell you this, right? I did go through a divorce. It was about 5 years ago. It was pretty rocky those first couple years. There were a lot of things that I didn't know, a lot of questions that I needed answered. But I think the most important thing to take away is there are people out there who can help with that. And that's why we're here tonight, is to let you know that, yes, there are people out there that can help, that can answer those questions, that can help you plan for the future. So with that, I would like to say thank you so much for having me tonight. I will leave you with this comment, and I am going to turn it back to Tammy to see if there are any questions or if you have any follow-up or closing comments for everybody.
Sorry, I forgot I was on mute. Thank you, Liz. Thank you,
You're
Liz.
welcome.
So please email any questions you have to OneAZ Wealth at oneazcu.com, and we will be sure to address them, whether now or later via an email directly to you. So for our first question, in caring for aging parents, do you have any ideas on being prepared for an emergency?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's such a great question because I think there's so many of us on this call that are caring for aging loved ones. So I know we briefly chatted about the healthcare directive, which I think is very important. The other thing that I think is important is to actually really think about, okay, take a look at your entire family. Take a look at the ages of the individuals in the family. What kind of health needs might they have in the future? What sorts of things might you be needing to plan for? I think if you can write that all down, I think if you can work with a trusted wealth advisor about that and really visually see, okay, this is where I might need to help them, or this is where what might come up, or this is how old they are, and here are maybe some of the health conditions. And then that way you can be planning accordingly. But I think for the best thing that you can do if you are caring for someone, again, whether it's an aging loved one or a spouse, is making sure that you have that healthcare directive on them, because you will want to make sure that that hospital and those physicians are able to talk to you if something does happen. So I would definitely recommend the healthcare directive.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next question, how can we talk to our children about money without talking to them about assets? And then the other part of the question is, what are some ideas we can be doing to lay down that foundation from an early age?
Yeah, again, a great question, because I think when it comes to children and wealth, I think there's a lot of things that we can be doing to talk to our kids about assets without necessarily talking about dollar amounts, and really kind of getting them into those healthy savings habits. So a couple things that I would recommend here. I definitely would recommend anytime you are doing an annual review, or anytime you're meeting with your wealth advisor, or you're opening an account on their behalf, bring them in, bring the children in, have them know what it feels like to walk into a financial advisor's office. They know what it feels like to walk into a doctor's office, to walk into a dentist's office. Make them comfortable walking into a financial advisor's office. Let them hear the language that is being used and the vocabulary. Let them hear what your wealth advisor is doing for your family. The other resource that I have for this is a website, and it's called moneysavvy.com. moneysavvy.com. And what this website does that's so great is it actually gives you some really great tools that you can be using with kids, no matter how old they are. So there's actually a piggy bank on there that you can use with 4 or 5-year-olds. And this piggy bank is divided into sections. It's got save and donate, invest and spend. So from a very early age, they're really getting into the habit that money serves different purposes. As they get a little bit older, the official guide to money for teenagers, which is written in language that teenagers can understand. They get a little bit older, they go off to college, the off to college budget workbook. They graduate, they get that job, first paycheck. So it's just a really great resource that will give you some tangible and tactical tools that you can be using with kids of all different ages. But I think when it comes to children and money, the best thing that we can be doing is start educating them and educating them early.
Awesome. Thank you. The next question is, being single, is there anything I can do to save on taxes? Great question. The thing with being single and saving on taxes, if you're not funding a 401k, you should do that. You can fund up to, if you're under 50, $22,500. If you're over 50, you could add another $7,500 for a total of $30,000. And that's in a 401k, either a Roth or a traditional IRA. Deciding which one is the best one for you is probably something you should talk to a financial advisor about. The other thing is a traditional IRA. There are some caps on income, so you have to be a little careful with that. Make sure you're talking to somebody, a CPA, a wealth advisor, somebody to make sure you're not funding a traditional IRA, but you could put $6,500 under age 50 and 7,500 if you're over 50. Those are some great ways to just lower your taxable income. It's dollar for dollar to lower your income, but it's not dollar for dollar. Like if you owe the government 7,000, you put it in, it's not the same. It's the percentage. So the other thing is I would tell you there's other things you can do. You should definitely be talking to a financial advisor because there are some small business plans if you're an independent, retirement accounts that you can do, that kind of thing. So make sure you just kind of talk to somebody. There's a lot of things that you can do, and we can definitely help you get to where you want to be. So the next question is, what are some good investments for single retired women? I'll go ahead and take this one. So that's a tough one, ladies. The reason is because what investment is right for you? There's not a one size fits all. There's not a one investment fits all. There's thousands of investments that you can use. And in many different ways, there's several risk tolerances as well. So to decide, for me to say, oh, this is what you should do is really tough. My suggestion would be definitely go in and meet with one of us. We're going to sit and meet with you for free. So you are more than welcome to come in and sit down and let us help you decide what is the best one for you. And we can also figure out what your risk tolerance is so that we can make sure that you're investing in the right categories. Just to make sure, because you don't want to do the wrong thing. The other thing is please make sure you have, before you're investing, make sure you have an emergency fund set up, because if you don't have an emergency fund and you start investing, it can actually cause some problems. Because you might be pulling your money out when the market's low. Some things like that. I've actually seen people invest all the money they had, and then within a couple of weeks, they needed to pull it out and it was bad. So please make sure you're talking to somebody so you make sure you're doing the right things and not causing yourself any harm. The next question is how to plan, save when you are a PhD student and in an academic career with no company retirement plan. So there are some small business plans. I'm not sure if you're considered an independent or a contract employee, but there's a way to save and put a lot of money away for that. Or just a traditional or a Roth IRA is a great way to do that as well. Again, meeting with somebody and making sure you do, there's other plans besides those that can get in the weeds and actually put a lot more money away, but it's sitting down and talking to somebody. It's all dependent on your income and several other aspects of your finances that determine what is the best for you. So I would strongly suggest, if that is your question, that you definitely sit down and talk to a financial advisor or a wealth advisor and get direction so that you do the right thing. Which is a better investment, a high yield savings account or annuity? Great question. Tough answer. Again, there is not a one size fits all. Again, please have an emergency fund set up before you do any investing, because it does protect you. It does protect your family from needing money at the wrong time. Now, a high yield savings account or an annuity, it depends on what access you need to the account, what you're looking for, if it's just interest. It all depends, because an annuity, you're locking your money up. There are surrender charges, which means if you wanted to pull all the money out, and it could be it could be actually higher, but 8% is typical in the first couple of years. And the minimum time is 3 years. So you would have to lock your money up for 3 years where you can't touch it. So if you needed it in year 2, you would get charged 8% of what you put in there. And even if you're making 5%, you just lost 3%. So it's not a good idea to decide what is the best for you unless you sit down and talk to somebody, because you want to make sure you make the best choice and that you don't do something that you're going to regret in the near future. Thank you very much for that question. The next question is, what financial advice do you have for women preparing to have children with their significant other in 1 to 2 years? Number 1, have an emergency fund built up. Typically, most people that are trying to tell you how to get out of debt, how to save, it's 3 to 6 months of what you currently spend. No, when you have kids, there's much higher expenses. And man, I'll tell you, one of the biggest raises I got when I didn't have to buy diapers anymore, it was a pretty big deal. And I saved a lot of money by not buying diapers. So just know that there's some things that you need to plan for, understand, make sure you put some money away so that those emergencies, that stuff comes up all the time with kids, and it's love having them. I have 3 of my own. I even have grandchildren. They're fantastic, but it is something that you need to be prepared for and plan for. So I would say get that emergency fund built up. And then if you're wanting to save for them in the future, when they want to go to college and stuff, once they're born, you can come in and talk to somebody about how to save for them for a wedding, for college. College, there's a 529 plan, and you can put it in there. It'll grow tax-free. And then it's tax-free when you withdraw it for education purposes. So there's a lot of really great things out there for you. If you wanted to start saving now for wedding stuff, even though you don't have kids and you have that emergency fund, go ahead and come in and talk to us, and we can start helping you with that. But like I tell most of my clients, don't just worry about your kids. You need to worry about yourself. So don't do everything for kids. You have to take care of yourself, because I have had people in the past that almost put themselves in the poorhouse to help their kids out. So we have to be careful with that. And as moms, we know we always want to give and give and give. All right. Knowing how to seek investment opportunities, balancing gains with inflation.
I'll take that one. I think that it and it kind of goes back to everything that Tammy was talking about, is it's really important to talk to a trusted financial advisor. Everybody's situation is unique. They can sit with you and really work with you on your risk tolerance. What does that look like? Everybody's objectives are going to be a little bit differently, but then they can also help you understand what are some of these investing opportunities that I should be taking advantage of? What are some of these things that I should be doing? So I think just talking to a trusted financial advisor, a trusted wealth advisor, is going to be the best thing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. So the next one is a sample of the best tools, either online technology or templates. So there's tons of information and stuff out there. OneAZwealth.com has several calculators that you can use. We have a risk tolerance questionnaire on there that you can use. We have a lot of education resources on there. MFS.com, Liz, the company that Liz works for, has amazing tools and resources as well that you can get on and use. I'll tell you, if you're going to use stuff, make sure it's validated. It's a good source. Don't just be like, oh, I did a search and this is the first one that popped up. Make sure it's accredited. It's a good company, somebody that knows what they're talking about. Again, you can always come in and talk to a financial advisor, and you can say, hey, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And we can give you a great link or a great way to get to it. Because sometimes, you get on websites and there's so much information and it's hard to find what you're looking for. We would be more than happy to help you out with that. The next question is how to get started when you don't have a lot to invest, and then how to get started when you're over 50. First of all, I'm just going to say answer the second part. It doesn't matter how old you are. If you're going to start saving, save. Just save as soon as you can. Stuff happens in life and some of us don't save. Divorces, deaths, lots of things cause us to not save or to pull anything that we had in savings out. If you don't have a lot to invest, again, the key is having that emergency fund saved up. Please, please, please have an emergency fund built up so that you don't cause yourself a major financial hardship by investing money. Say you got a fixed annuity for 3 years and then you got in a car accident and you needed that $1,000 deductible, and the money is in an annuity that you're going to get charged 8% to get out. There's a lot of things that you really need to consider. So I would tell you to have that emergency fund built up. Make sure you can cover any major catastrophe that you have, which they say 3 to 6 months of what you spend in your just a savings account. And that could be a high yield savings account, whatever. Just put it in there where it's accessible with no fees to get it out. And then to start investing, if you have that, we have a guided wealth portfolio program on our system for people with just a little bit of money. You can take a questionnaire. If you're not great technology wise, like me personally, we have somebody that can call you, talk to you, walk you through it. We always have advisors that will help you and answer questions. You could see them face to face if you needed to and had questions about your account. But that's a great way to get started too, with a little bit of money and putting in monthly if you could do that. So I would strongly suggest doing that. All right, next question. Where can I invest money where it can grow over the years? Basically, investments, choices for long-term financial gain. Okay, so I would tell you all investments are pretty much for long-term gain. But what it comes down to is, again, there's a lot of questions to that. For me to ask you questions or another advisor, we have to know your financial situation. We have to know where you're at financially, if you have that emergency fund built up, what your risk tolerance is, what can you handle with a market fluctuation? If you can't handle a market fluctuation, how long can you lock your money up? There's a lot of questions because, of course, there's not a one size fits all. There just really isn't in investing. I wish I could say, oh, this is what you should do, but there isn't, oh, this is what you should do. Please talk to somebody, because I guarantee you we could help you get to where you want to go or where you want to be, and not hurt you financially either. All right. So I think this is going to be our last question. How to begin investing outside of a 401k. So you have to decide if you're wanting to save for, like, outside of a 401k, there's a lot of things that you can do. It depends on how much money you can put away at a time. Like if it's a little bit of money and you can start here, our guided wealth portfolio that I already mentioned is a great way to go. If it is, I want to put it in retirement, non-retirement, there's options there. So there becomes a lot of questions again in how would I begin investing? How risky are you? How long do we have before you retire? Your risk tolerance is a big deal. Your current financial situation is a big deal. Those are all things that's called know your customer. We have to understand your financial situation and your risk tolerance before we can suggest anything legally. That is a federal regulation. So I just want you guys to know that please talk to somebody so that you're getting help and you're not doing something that may hurt you in the future. And make sure you ask questions if you're not sure of something. You can always get a second opinion, but it's good to just make sure you're talking to somebody that is good at what they do. All right. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much, Liz. Great information. I did learn a lot from what you presented today and from your insights. For those watching and listening, thank you for joining us. We hope our discussion today has helped to provide you with some ideas on women in investing. We all here at OneAZ Wealth Management welcome your feedback and comments. As always, our entire OneAZ Wealth team of advisors stand ready to assist you in reviewing your current financial plan and portfolio in the light of today's economy. There is no better time than the present for a second opinion on your current plan or to start your first plan. We welcome your call. Please feel free to contact our team of advisors at 877-566-0517 and visit our website at oneazwealth.com. The information is on your screen. You can scan that QR code again if you want to do that, to go to our website. And that would give you more information about creating your own personal finance and retirement plan. And just so you know, we do typically follow up with an email or a phone call just to kind of get your feedback on this presentation. So please be prepared for that. We just like to get feedback. So if there's anything that we can improve, we want to do that. And thank you for joining us. From all of us at OneAZ Wealth, we wish you the best 2023 for your safety, health, and wealth. Thank you, guys.